Good afternoon.
G'day, Graham. How's it going?
Very well. Thank you very much for letting me draw the short straw following Kieran and Tony. Good on you.
Not at all, mate. I'm glad we get you at the start. Kick off with a bang. It's been an absolute pleasure working with you this year, and I really think you've got some very valuable insights that many people would get a lot of value from. So for those of you that don't know Graham, if you could do a little intro, who you are and why do you do what you do?
Good question. Look, let me just start off by saying again and reiterating, I drew the short straw following Kieran and Tony. Like Kieran, I'm an Irishman, and I've spent a life introducing myself to people that didn't know me before that very moment that I stepped on their toes or stepped in their door. He took Kieran himself actually took some of my thunder, because people do buy from people. Then you follow it with Tony. I've known Tony for 20 years, and Tony crystallized my thinking and selling, and I guess codified my talent. So why do I do what I do? I left the Royal Australian Navy and had to find work, and started it by, again, like Kieran, commission only, selling consumables for cash registers and photocopiers on the south coast of New South Wales, and calling every business on the left-hand side of the highway down as far as Bateman's Bay, and every business on the left-hand side on the way up. Giving people 10, 15, 20 business cards week after week, and knowing that one day, or realizing that one day, they would ring me back. Why do I do it? I love what I do. I find I've tried many other things, but I think at the basis of all of this, of everything that we do, everybody sells. We sell ourselves on a daily basis. Every time we walk into a shop or a doctor's surgery or government department, we're selling. So here I am.
Love it. There's a bit of a theme there. People starting out with commission only sales.
Yeah.
That's how I first got into it as well. All right. Well, look, I mean, you've been in this game for a long time, and so I'm wondering if you can boil this down in one example. But the theme of the day is something practical that I can do today to get value tomorrow. Right? What do you think when we ask something like that?
So when you briefed me for this, one of the things I remember telling you was that I went a period of time where I didn't lose a sale for 4.5 years. And when I thought about why, I thought, just in case he asked me, or in case I decide to bring it up, I wondered why that was. And it was selling to government, selling solutions to government. And what I realized about that was understanding the rules was really, really important. Government buyers all play by the same set of rules. And the reality is government sellers must play by the same set of rules. But don't forget, rules are also for interpretation. They're not for blindly following. And going back to people buying from people that they like and trust, understanding what drives a government department or a company to buy or to solve a problem, and thinking of it from the point of view of the person that you're dealing with, because don't forget, companies, government departments pay companies after people buy from people. So when we distill it down to that, it's a people business. It's still a people business, playing by the same set of rules. So what did I work out one day? That working for government is having a degree in the abrogation of responsibility. Now, without having a go at any of my ex-customer or government customers or anybody in government, but the reality is responsibility is a committee decision or a committee responsibility. The committee, the buying committee, the project committee, the evaluation committee are responsible for buying or for making a decision. So what I did, I must admit, without knowing it, the words fell out of my mouth one day, and I said, I am responsible. I'm responsible for ensuring that the tender response we've offered you in response to your request is exactly what answers the questions that you have. I'm responsible for ensuring that our presentation and our delivery of our understanding of your need is correct. And I'm responsible for ensuring that after you make the decision to trust the company that I'm representing, provide the solution, I'm responsible for ensuring that it's delivered. I work for you. I get paid by these guys, but I work for you. I could see the weight being lifted off people's shoulders. It was just amazing. So they went, okay, wow, somebody else is responsible. I don't have to be. So Graham, help us. Of course I can. And there we are. And then we broke it down. People dealt with people at all levels. And we helped over 4.5 years, or in New Zealand particularly, I won 7 out of 7 tenders, and left there without. I'd never been to New Zealand before. In 2 years, 2 and a bit years, I went to Wellington 38 times, and won probably close to $10 million worth of business in initial upfront license and initial support costs. So there you are. I hope that answered your question.
7 out of 7 government tenders. It's unheard
yes.
of. That's amazing.
The only government tender I lost in 6 years was to one fellow called Tony Hughes. He cost me $500,000.
Oh, yeah, right.
Good on him.
Then. How good. So, a bit of a curveball and a different swing of a question. But so, if you did have to sell ice to an Eskimo, what would be your opening line?
I'd need to understand why he needed ice. First off, so the question would be: so, what am I doing here? What's happened in your life or in your organization that has you talking to me about this particular problem? Because I would need to understand in my own head, what am I doing here? Well, this guy doesn't need ice. Maybe he thinks I'm here to buy ice. So I would have to, my opening line would be, why am I here? Tell me.
Fair enough. All right. In all the years that you've been selling, have you got a favorite deal, a favorite customer, a favorite sales experience that you feel like really helped propel your career?
Propel, or I guess in a funny way, bookended. My first sale was I was on 35% commission on gross profit, and I sold a calculator. I made $1.43, and I went to a pub in Milton on the New South Wales south coast, and I bought myself a midi of Tui's new for my lunch. So that was the very first one, and that was, I'll never forget it. I could take you to the exact spot and how chuffed I was. A deal that really, or a sale I made, and deal is a funny word, was in Western Australia, and it was to the Department of Child Protection, and they were out. I get emotional about this actually. They were out for an information management system, document and records management, and we were subcontracted or were working with Unisys at the time, not for with. So they answered a bigger tender, and we were part of that tender response and that solution delivery. And what we worked out was that, and what I understood and worked out was that the CEO of this particular department was turning over on a very regular basis. And there was one particular piece of information that hit the headlines, hit the front page of the paper, because the first thing that the CEO of any of the social services departments in any government doesn't want to do is be on the front page of the paper. And on the front page of the paper was the fact that a ward of the state, a young 9-year-old boy, had been fiddled with by a piano teacher, music teacher. Right? So they failed in their responsibility. So in my allotted 20 minutes, I decided, after being told not to go off script, to appeal directly to the CEO. And so this is not about getting your records management right. This is about saving the wards of the state. This is about ensuring that your department delivers on what it says on the sticker. Okay? You're here to protect children, and I can help you do that. and I can help you keep your job. Again, it was one of those moments when everybody hushed and I thought to myself, have I blown it? After at the break, which was very soon after it, he approached me in the corridor, shook my hand and said, thank you very much. I'm not allowed to do this, but I think you're going to win the business. So I appealed directly to a real problem that this guy had. It wasn't the problem that was on the initial front page of the tender request. And I've always said, and even since then and before then, I had said, be careful what you ask for, you might get it, and then you'll have to go back to market and buy what you need.
I like that. It kind of ties into what you had first mentioned. Like, if you can go to a customer and say, look, I work for you. Like, paid by these guys, I work for you. You're actually understanding what their real problems are, not what the bill is on the ticket. Right?
And as Steve Jobs did beautifully with Apple, I mean, that's the whole thing about Apple. Apple solved problems for people, appealed to people. It wasn't about the product. It was about the person, right? It was about give them something they want to use, not give them Lotus 1, 2, 3 and use it as a word processor by making the cell 80 columns wide back in the day. Talking about Kieran's before computers. So yes, absolutely, give people what they need and what they want, and they'll be with you forever. I can still call up my customers, government customers today, and they will see me and they will ask me, hey Graham, what's going on? When are you coming to see me? What have you got? Right? Because I solved their problem, not because I sold them something they didn't want.
Yeah. Exactly. What you have is irrelevant. They like working with the person, right? It's really
absolutely. Yeah, look, and it's people. Tony Hughes is famous also for saying people buy from people they like and trust. And again, as Kieran alluded to, also, when you make a living from introducing yourself to strangers, you have to be likable and you have to be trustworthy. Otherwise, you're never going to make a living in what we call a profession, which it isn't. You don't go to university to become a salesperson. But in fact, I think we are as skilled as any profession. And we have to continue to skill ourselves. And talking about books, the books that are on my shelf, a number of them are by Tony Hughes, but there's a number of them, and there's Tom Hopkins. Tom Hopkins taught me the three things I still use today. What do you have now? What do you like about what you have now? And what would you alter or change with what you have now? Right? It's the basis of what we do. And that must be your mindset when you meet a stranger.
What are 2 more books you have on your shelf and your favorite thing from each book?
Wow, 2 more books I have. So look, my favorite sales book is The Joshua Principle, and it is a Tony J. Hughes book, and it's ultimately a story about a father and son, but it's written, under the guise of a business relationship and mentoring a young man in a business career, selling career, and helping that young person understand how to sell big ticket items, how to sell to the entire organization, how to be likable and trustable and trustworthy. And it's a brilliant book, and I recommend it, and I really do recommend it to everybody I come across and talk about selling. It's The Joshua Principle by Tony J. Hughes. Another book I have on my shelf, that's such a hard...
What's a one-liner from that book that people can resonate with?
Tony's book? People buy from people they like and trust.
From that book. Awesome.
Yep.
All right.
I believe it's from that book, but hey, that's a good question. I'm looking around to see what I have here. That's a great question, and I'm going to take a rain check on that one. I'll have to get back to you because I read a lot. Dr. Dennis Waitley wrote a book called The Psychology of Winning.
Mm-hmm.
And it was for me, it was a character changing, a bit of a savior text for me. And from that, I realized that winning is a mindset, And if you believe you can, you can. If you believe you can't, you won't.
Too true. Too true. All right. Just a couple quick fire questions. All right. So, what would be your favorite opener? Let's say you don't know someone, you've checked them out a little bit online, their LinkedIn, their website, or whatever. What's a good opener that you might use?
I love the opener, which is what's happened in your organization that saw you offer me the time to speak with you today. Why am I here?
What happened in your organization? I like it.
You know, because again, it's not about me. And again, we don't talk product, solution, or service. We need to understand what's going on in that organization. Now, we also need to turn up with a researched point of view, okay, and a relevant point of view. So knowing the industry, knowing the company, understanding what drives the buyer, because again, companies pay companies after people buy from people. So how do I help this person in this role, in this company, in this market, in this geography, on this planet? How do I help them today? What's happening in the world today that affects them, and how can I help them achieve their own outcomes, their own KPIs, KRAs, goals, overcome their own challenges and obstacles?
Amazing. Love it. Can you think of a single, what maybe the strangest request is that you've got from a customer? What's the strangest request that you received from a customer, and how'd you handle it?
Well, I wish I had told me this one beforehand. I would have done some thinking. I've never been asked to. I'll tell you a little one quick, and it's about research. This isn't a strange thing, but it's I guess it's part of the nuance of selling. I had a habit of going in the day before to understand the layout of the room, the acoustics, the AV setup, and I talked to the prospect or my contact, the influencer in the organization. And again, this was in New Zealand, and I asked them, and I was able to find out that the day before was a particular. They're still around. FileNet were before me. They connected via the internet back in the day, and we're talking 2001, 2002 here, and it fell over, and so much so that the buyer, the decision maker, a fellow called Noel, was falling asleep. And he fell asleep. He had enough. So what we didn't do was, of course, therefore, connect up the AV. We didn't have any need to do that. We were well researched. We knew where we were sitting. We sat each other where we had a good vision of everybody in there. And every time Noel started to flutter his eyes, I would say, "So, Noel, what happens in your organization at this point?" And he would wake up, and he would participate. And I heard back later that he loved it because he felt part of the process as opposed to being spoken to. So I hope that didn't answer your question, but it's a real thing. It really happened.
A funky situation. I like it. That's a good way. There's 20 different ways you could have handled that, but that is probably one of the more friendly and like a positive contribution to the meeting. I like it.
Thank you.
Graham, I really appreciate you taking the time, mate. Thank you so much for
sharing.
And we'll make sure we share all the questions that come through to you directly, and people will have a chance to get some of the links from Graham as well after the session.
Enjoy, everybody, and thank you very much for the time, Isaac.
Thanks so much, Graham. See you later.
Cheers.